Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. This is Nick, and I'm here with Derek today. He finished in the top cut here with this blue Bardock deck in Main Event 3, and it's going to be our deck tech of Main Event 3. First of all, Derek, welcome in.
Hello.
All right, and we're going to start with kind of a basic overview of the deck tech and then some general questions. So, start off, we got the Bardock stack 1 through 3, blue Divinity Mastery. You got a couple of allies here, 14, the kind of auto-include villain ally, Torybot, good in both types, and of course Gina, who plays with Bardock quite well. A fairly nice drill package here, Vic Drill, Bubbles, Champ, Serenity, Kinski, Spec Ops, and Reversal. So a little bit of all the stuff that Blue brings to the table. Of course, you got all your stop alls, suspiciously missing Blue Weaving, which is interesting. Daze, Blue Terror, Freezes Ready. These are cards you're going to see a good percentage of the time. The battleground location of choice was Dismal Future. And then as you can see, the main you got Android 18 Stare Down, of course, and then the main attacks are the little bit of the Boo package here, which is very strong, as well as Chokehold, which leads you into the Blue Throw package, Colossal Throw, Round Throw, and then of course you got some other big Blue attacks that are quite useful, and some one-ups here, Arm Shoulder Throw and Energy Throw, as well as your block package, Overpowering Aura, Blue Energy Slide, Tien's Block. And then a couple of 2-ups here with Crushing Blow, Right Cross, and Blue Double Blast. The bottom row here is your Sensei deck. And alright, so we're gonna start with this. First of all, Derek, how do you think the deck performed overall? Were you happy with it? Is this something you'd be interested in playing again?
Yeah, I think so. It was really fun to. I don't know. It worked out a lot better than I thought it was going to. It was sort of like a gimmick where I was like, I really want to play Bardock, and let's try to add in a bunch of cards that try to mitigate some of the ways that he's weak. And Blue just had like a number of cards that could do that. And then as I kind of put it all together, I was like, this might actually sort of work. And then it played pretty smooth. Bardock's effect of just seeing their hand is pretty important, and it just makes a lot of stuff a lot easier to use.
Okay, so let's start with the first question. Blue Divinity Mastery is one of my personal favorites. Why did you choose that mastery?
Well, it went a little bit with the most of the choices in this deck are just like kind of directly related to I had to play Bardock. So Bardock, his whole thing is on all three of his levels. You can see your opponent's hand at all times. They play with their hand revealed. Mm-hmm. So Blue Divinity Mastery, it after you perform a successful attack, you can kind of put the shields up and block ready. Well, with Bardock being able to see their hand all the time, you kind of know when you can get a successful attack off, and you know when you need to kind of put the shields up to have it ready for an attack. You know when it's fine to waste, I can wait a turn because they're going to hit me with something that I'm not super worried about yet, and then I can put the shields up at the next attack with Divinity because I can already see it. And then the little bit of damage buff that it gives you too just helps the fact that Bardock is a tiny little weenie.
Okay. Next question I got for you is based around Dismal Future. So, which battleground or location to play in a deck is not always super clear. So why did you choose Dismal Future? And looking back, did it work out the way you wanted it to?
So I picked Dismal because Blue doesn't typically have a super huge hand size. And one of the things that, especially with NZ, that Blue does is that it uses its discard pile for kind of its extended actions, your Colossal Throws and stuff like that. You have a number of good transform cards. Your Kamehameha Blasts come out of your discard pile, etc. So you don't have to search your deck a ton for stuff. Mm-hmm. And you don't typically have a large hand. You have 3 or 4, and then you discard one to have a third or fourth again. And so you don't typically get hurt by Dismal Future all that bad. It does, of course, hinder your Chokehold play, which does feel bad. But it feels a lot better to face a 4-card hand than a 6-card hand as a deck that has 3 or 4. So I'm willing to make the sacrifice. I'd probably continue to play that one. I toyed a little bit with Sacred World of the Kais, just because I'm literally in B all the time. Mm-hmm. So it might be relevant to make it so that you're not gonna E to B me, and that's just a chunk of damage every time something like that lands. Mm-hmm. But knowing that I had the Divinity Mastery and being able to see what attacks were coming and which ones I should or shouldn't block, it felt like the control over their hand might be a little more relevant than kind of the defensive run away from damage button that Sacred World might have been.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, another question here. We got Majin Buu's Heel Kick as a 3 of. Obviously, this card is very strong. It's a freestyle card, so you can include it in any deck. Is this a choice because blue is maybe not as good at getting rid of the discard pile, or is this just a card you think should be in most physical decks? Like, what's your kind of take on this and why you included it?
So it's a little bit of both of that. It's decent damage. +4 is not not nothing. As anyone who's familiar with like the NZ meta is or would know is that you have to be able to remove like transform cards and stuff because they just keep coming back. And just having some option to pick those out, and it's not on a successful attack. You just get to do it, so that's good. And then the couple of stage gains sometimes helps me just not be at 0 again for, I'll take 5 instead of 7 or 8 on the next attack if I had to. So it just felt right there. I toyed a tiny bit with Blue Energy Arrow, the one that like pulls 10 cards out of their discard pile or whatever. But that card's mostly bad.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But it is sort of the blue one that does it. So sometimes I think about that card, but it's hardly ever that I think that that's better than Heel Kick. So Heel Kick's just kind of my de facto one that removes cards in their discard pile for blue right now.
Okay, so you had mentioned earlier about Majin Buu's Chokehold, and of course what it does is if successful, you go get a throw card. So obviously Blue Colossal Throw and Blue Round Throw are going to be your two major throw cards. But you've also including a one-arm shoulder throw and a Blue Energy Throw as a one-of. So basically, did you feel like those were useful includes? Did you ever search for either of them? How do you feel about the little small little throw package?
Yeah, so I like the throw package a lot, and it's chokehold specifically is part of the reason I wanted to play Bardock. Getting a successful chokehold to hit to go get us something else, like a colossal throw, to then chain into a different card, is a really strong string of effects. But it also requires that your attacks need to be successful more than once. And Bardock just lets me see their hand all the time, so I know like when my chokeholds are going to be at their best. I know when my colossal throws are going to be the safest to throw for my discard pile. I don't have to throw them blind and like waste them. So the throw package itself, Energy Throw is cool. I did use it to lower the level against an NZ Broly deck. The one-arm shoulder throw is nice just to have one extra physical block. Overall, I was generally pleased with the throw package that I had.
Okay. So you keep mentioning, Bardock's ability to see your opponent's hand being very powerful. Obviously, the interaction with Bubble Drill is pretty clear there. Did you get to use this very much? How did you feel about it? Was it as good as it looks like it would be?
Yes, and yes. In my first game, played against Johnny with NZ Broly, I hit Bubbles Drill on like turn 2, and then I had it like all game. Oof. And it was brutal. He had a Nappa's physical resistance in his hand for like 6 combats. And it felt awesome.
Okay.
It was Bubbles Drill and Bardock alone like almost feels worth playing. I know it's a one-of drill and like drills are easy enough to get rid of, but while you have it, it's so strong. As if like seeing their hand all the time isn't strong enough.
Right.
Bubble Drill is just like icing on the cake.
Yeah.
I guess one other thing with Bubbles Drill that's really fun in blue is you name a card in their hand, they can't play it, and then you discard a card from your deck to use the effect. Sometimes you hit Blue Kamehameha Blast, and then you get to add a Kamehameha Blast to your hand.
That does seem good.
That's amazing.
That does seem very, very strong. So when we're looking at your typical one-of package of all the very powerful one-ofs that this game and that blue specifically has to offer, I noticed that blue weaving is missing. So why did you not play blue weaving? Are you not a fan of the card? Did it not just make sense in the deck? Or did you feel like you just had enough physical blocks?
It's sort of that. I think that blue weaving is fantastic. I like blue weaving almost better than energy card, to be honest. Getting all that extra endurance is really cool. But Super Saiyan effect, stance, and resistance, and overpowering aura I think is great. Tien's block was putting in huge work here. I had a searchable one-arm throw if I needed it. I ran jolting slashes in the Sensei, so if I ran into a deck that it was just going to be relevant in, I would just have like no physicals all combat. It just felt like that was enough, and I didn't feel like I had quite enough energy blocks that I wanted to run. Aura and energy slide are good, but it's it's not a lot, right? So I
Sure.
was like, well, Energy Guard is one more kind of stop all. So we'll go with that.
Yep. So for your main block package, we just talked about overpowering order, energy slide, and Tian's block being your main blocks. I've always found Tian's block to be very strong in decks with drills. Obviously, there's a good chunk of drills in this deck, so it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the two NZ blue blocks are just so much better than the terrible blue blocks that Score had for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like that's a pretty straightforward package. So the last thing main deck wise I want to talk about are these 3 2-ofs here. We got blue double blast, blue right cross, and blue crushing blow. I assume that you played them all as a 2-of because you weren't sure which ones you really wanted and you wanted to kind of get a feel for how they felt. So after playing them, how do you feel about them now?
It's sort of a little bit of that. Blue right cross, I'm sort of married to. I love that card. 7 life and 2 stages with mastery active is just a huge physical attack. Sometimes too, with Bardock not hitting for a lot of table damage, sometimes your opponent just like powers up and you're like, okay, well, it's a physical for 3 and does literally no damage because 3 doesn't matter while you still have 10. And right cross is just a decent way to be like, well, I guess 7 life cards is cool. It's also really fun to grab off a Colossal Throw. You do a good Colossal Throw for some damage, and then you right cross throw a bunch of life cards. I like that. Crushing Blow was just sort of like tech for Anger decks. I didn't think I needed a full 3 of it, so 2 felt I wanted to have it, but I didn't feel like I needed to see it like all the time, so I ran 2 of that. The only one that I would say I was like really kind of testing is Double Blast. Bardock's only got 1 PUR, I guess 2 with Mastery.
Sure.
But that's not a whole lot for double. I guess that's 5 twice, which isn't nothing. But it's not like the kind of MP you run double blasts with. It's not like, oh wow, he's got 4 PUR. But we had intense key drill for the +3 PUR to try to get him up to 5, which would make double blasts a lot bigger. So there were times that it was relevant, but I didn't think it was like huge. So I just ran it at 2. I do think that it's fine in Bardock. It was one of the cards that I liked sort of the least because I did have to be really careful with like where my stages were at with this deck because sometimes you do just like eat damage as a character and be all 4 of your levels or 3 of your levels. But I don't hate it. I wouldn't cut it, I don't think. But it wasn't a card that like overperformed or anything. I did get it to do 10 in one combat one time, and so that felt fine. But so it definitely wasn't nothing.
Okay. All right. So North Kai. What's with the choice of North Kai? Doesn't feel like this is the most aggressive deck, but you're in a weird spot where if you need the Sensei deck spots, it's really just North Kai or bumping on up to Elder Kai. Is that kind of where you were at, or did you think you would be more aggressive than you ended up being, or were you more aggressive than I was anticipating?
So in my head, I knew that left half of this table here is they're not very aggressive.
Right.
Right half of this table, there's some stuff to do.
Yep.
But so I was like, oh, this is probably going to be like get entered on a lot. But with Bardock being able to see their hand all the time, I know like when I have a hand that feels really good, I'm a lot more comfortable entering on it because I can A, see the card they kept, and then B, after they draw their cards, I can now know like how relevant the rest of my turn needs to be. So I felt like I was able to enter more often than I kind of thought I was going to be able to. And I knew that if that was going to be the case, having North Kai to be able to turn off their mastery a couple times was going to be relevant if the game was like running away on me. Like if a Saiyan deck was just like rushing me, I knew I was going to need a couple combats to tell them they couldn't draw 6.
For sure.
And even just like the matchups with like a black deck, +2/+2 when you're this weak of a character is brutal. So being able to turn that off for a couple combats was huge. And then turning off Red Trunk Saga didn't feel bad.
Yeah.
So it was. I didn't mind North Kai. I could see like an Elder Kai situation if you were really confident in your in like what you wanted to have like ready for your sensei kind of thing. But I like just the little bit of sometimes my hand just feels good enough in a deck where I'm going to be able to see your hand that I think it's time to just like step on the gas.
Sure.
And it's nice to have that extra button to push further with.
Okay, yeah, that all makes perfect sense. All right, so we got to break down the Shinsei deck here. Obviously, Blue Mistkick. If you guys don't know what this is the best blue card that exists in the game currently. You should play 3 of it in all of your decks. So Jolting Slash, as you talked about earlier, the matchups where this card is good, it's going to be real good. You're going to want it every time, which is why it's in the Sensei deck, of course. And then the third Dismal for especially the Saiyan and possibly Namekian matchups makes perfect sense, and so does Prep Crash. Prep Crash is what it is. When you need it. When you need it, it's great. Frieza's Deception is an interesting choice and Tough Enough to me. I also played Frieza's Deception in my Tough Enough Sensei. I think this card is insanely good. Did you bring it in at all? Did you? Because obviously this is more of a standard card in general, but how did you feel about this card in Tough Enough?
I think the games that I played, I didn't need it as much as some of the rest of my Sensei deck, of course. But I was really happy to have it. If I were in a situation where I would need it, I would have been way more upset to not have it. It's just like a 2 of in every Sensei deck I play now. I still think even in Tough Enough, there are plenty of decks. I mean, even my Helm deck's one of them that is just going to camp one, set up some drills, and then do the thing. So, I mean, not that Frieza's Deception would hurt me a ton if someone used it against my deck. That's one of the things that felt nice about Bardock. But my deck's even just an example of a deck that was in that tournament that was just a camp 1 deck. So having Deception felt all right.
All right.
I would keep it.
And the last question is, of course, the funnest question for me. Blue Copycat Drill. So this card has not seen much play. There were two decks that played it in the top cut of this last event. It's very cool. Tough Enough only, of course. If you declare Tokuwaza, it becomes a copy of your opponent's mastery. So how often did you bring this in? How did it feel? Did you get to turn it on? And, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I did. Funnily enough, I played it against the other blue deck, which was also a Divinity deck. So we got to have 2 Divinity Masteries on the table, which was cool because sometimes I would get Northkide and lose my Mastery, and then my Copycat Drill would turn on my opponent's Mastery, and so I still had my Mastery. Instead of having 2, I just had 1, but I still had 1 instead of none.
Sure.
So that felt good. I had it. I didn't bring it in against red because I didn't want to level, and then I played a black deck that was on Trunk Saga, so I was perfectly happy to have +2/+2 on my attacks.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's the deck. I was very impressed with it. I thought it played very well. Obviously, the top cut, which is always nice. Overall, is this a deck that you would play again?
Yeah, I will definitely continue to play this. I mean, I'm not known for playing the same deck a ton of times, but this is a deck I won't be taking apart. I had a blast playing it. I think almost everything in it felt great. I think the package, the chokehold, colossal throw, and then 1-inch punch to help with his power level, intense key drill to help with PUR. There's this sort of little suite of cards that just made Bardock feel awesome, and that was cool. Oh, one thing I do want to mention, Gine's power. Same thing I talked about with Bubbles Drill. Gine's power says you can, when a card effect makes you discard a card from your hand, you can mill the top card of your deck. I did that and hit a Kamehameha Blast, and so I drew a card and my Kamehameha Blast, and didn't discard any cards, so I +2'd instead of net 0. So that was awesome. That was a huge swing of a turn. Same with Toribot. Draw a card, then discard a card. Just draw a card, mill a card, which could be a Kamehameha Blast, or is really just not discard a card from your hand.
Yep.
So those all felt awesome.
Yeah, your ally choices make perfect sense with Bardock. I definitely think this deck is real unique. It's real sweet. Of course, the token Frieza's ready. I'm a big fan of this card myself.
Oh yeah, Frieza's ready forever.
And blue just having Kamehameha and Betrayal and Mistkick for non-ally removal, so you don't have to rely on weaker cards to do that, is very nice. So overall, very very happy with this deck. I thought it was very cool. It looked like you enjoyed it. It's certainly. Please check out some of the games with it. It was certainly cool to watch. Anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
In my first game, I got to Frieza's ready for 14, and then it left play, and then I negationed a sphere, or I negationed a time or something, a combat card. It might have even been a stare down. I don't know. I negationed something, and then brought Frieza's ready back, and then hit it for another 8. So I got 22 off of Frieza's ready that game, so that felt amazing.
Yeah, this is a card that should see a lot more play than it does. I'm very surprised at how limited play it
I
generally
love
sees.
it. Big fan of that card.
Yeah, yeah. Well, all right, Derek. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for talking about your deck here a little bit. And I'm sure we'll be back with more deck techs in the future.
Thanks, man.
All right.